My job is simple, just to sit in a windowless room from midnight to dawn and watch 23 monitors. I'm a night security guard at a distribution warehouse. The biggest rule there is don't look away from the screens. But the real horror wasn't what I saw. It was what I was forced to see again and again. My shift was usually tedious, filled with the endless rain and the rhythmic blinking of LED status lights. All 23 cameras were active except for camera 4. Camera 4 had been dead for 6 months, a useless, black screen on the third row, until Tuesday night. Around 3 a.m., the black screen of camera 4 flickered, then resolved into an image. It was a still, low-resolution shot of the main loading bay. A huge, concrete cavern filled with shadows. Finally fixed it, I muttered, taking a sip of lukewarm coffee. But then I saw the detail. The shot wasn't live. The timestamp in the corner didn't match the console clock. More disturbingly, the loading bay on the screen was different. It shows the third bay door, which had been replaced last year, and was old and rusted. This was old footage. As I reached for the radio to report the anomaly, the image moved. It wasn't a long clip. It was a short, terrible loop. The loop started with the image of the bay. Then, a figure, a tall, unnaturally thin silhouette slid out from the shadows of the third bay door. It didn't walk. It seemed to flow across the concrete, and it immediately stopped, turning its blank, dark face directly toward where the camera was mounted. Then the image would freeze. It would hold that terrifying still frame for 3 seconds, and then the whole sequence would snap back to the start. The whole loop lasted maybe 7 seconds. I watched it loop 10 times. The impossible speed of the figure's movement, the way it came to an abrupt stop, and the fixed, unblinking stare it directed straight at the lens was paralyzing. I finally managed to call my supervisor and told him about the rogue feed. Camera 4. That feed is physically disconnected. Alex, I don't know what you're seeing, but it's not our system. Try resetting the panel, he said to me. I tried. Nothing happened. The 7-second loop continued. Flow, stop, stare, freeze, snap. I decided to try it and find the source. I pulled up the live feed of the real loading bay. Camera 12. It was empty, dark, and normal. The third bay door was the new, clean panel. The past was clearly separate from the present. Then, the loop on camera 4 changed. The flow, stop, stare sequence was the same. But the last image was terrifying freeze frame. Now, the thin figure wasn't just staring at the camera. In the foreground, right at the edge of the frame, I could see the reflection of a face in the glass of the security camera lens. It was my face. The loop was no longer old footage. It was a self-contained, closed loop of a terrifying event that was about to happen. The figure in the shadows was watching the camera, and my reflection was already there, caught in the glass, confirming that I was present for that precise moment in time. I realized what the entity was doing. It wasn't trapped in the past. It was forcing the past to become the present. It was using the closed circuit, the broken feed, to tether its moment to mine. I slammed my palms over my eyes, whimpering, "Don't look, don't look," I repeated, but I had to know. I slowly lowered my hands and stared at the screen. The loop was still running. Flow, stop, stare, freeze ... comma. And in the final freeze frame, the reflection of my face in the glass was no longer wide-eyed with shock. My reflected mouth was open, screaming, and the thin figure on the screen, frozen in its stare, was now subtly different. Its head was tilted, and its long, spindly arm was raised, its finger pointing directly out of the screen, aimed right at the monitor where I sat. My phone suddenly buzzed with a message. It was a text from my supervisor. "Alex, you've been on camera 4 for 2 hours. Go outside, get some air." I looked down at the time on my phone, 5 a.m. My shift was over. I stood up, shaking violently, and looked at the feed one last time. The figure was pointing right at me. I knew if I left the security room, I would step directly into the 7-second loop. I would walk into the loading bay. The figure would flow towards me, and the last thing I would see would be my own screaming face, reflected in the lens before the loop snapped back to the beginning. I locked the security office door, slid down the wall, and pulled my knees to my chest. I am not leaving. I sit here now, watching the other 23 monitors for movement, ignoring the one screen that matters. And every 7 seconds, I hear the faint, muffled snap of the loop restarting, waiting for the guard who never leaves to finally walk into his reflection.